Ads, like taxes, home chores, the pain of childbirth, or having to work for a living, they're a necessary evil which we have come to accept having to live with. With a pretty persistent and always growing expectation that everything digital should be free, developers have had to turn to ads to make a living, whether it's on YouTube, websites you visit, or perhaps the worst, in-app advertising. Now, I'm not against ads per se. Being a YouTube content creator who's recently been approved for monetization, I look forward to when my videos can start to make a little bit of money, even if it's just a few cents, as a tip for my work. I also understand that nothing is free. So if a company is expected to provide you with a product or service for free, then there's got to be a way for them to make money. If nothing, then just to pay their own employees, people like you and me. However, what I am against are certain types of ads which are unfortunately becoming, or have already become, the norm. That's where the Pi-hole comes in, an open-source network-wide ad blocker, which means it can block ads on any device you use in your home network. And what's more, it's a breeze to install. The most obvious reason to block ads is because they're annoying. Typically, an ad stands between you and the content you're consuming, whether that's a YouTube video, a website, an app, or a game. Ads being annoying is nothing new and not even necessarily digital. After all, TV networks nowadays are just ads, with a few minutes of actual content sprinkled in. And the same can be said for most radio stations and magazines. But on your computer or smart device, ads can be more than just annoying. First, there's those damn misleading ads you get when you're playing a mobile game. You get an ad which shows gameplay that looks interesting or new with varied elements and many different scenarios. Only to then download the advertised game and find out it's another goddamn match 3 game. These types of ads are, simply put, fake and misleading at best, and they would never be allowed on a traditional medium such as TV. And yet, Google, Apple, and many others are perfectly happy to allow these types of ads on apps that their users have downloaded from their own app stores. Oh, and whilst I'm ranting, how impossible is it to skip the ads? Or at the very least, close the damn ad when it's done playing. Every ad displays their close button in a different place, and whilst some ads show it straight away with a timer, other ones require you to tap the ad to display the button, while still others need you to wait a few seconds before the button is displayed. Make no mistake, this is a deliberate tactic to get people to tap on ads in the hope that a close button will show up. It also doesn't help that most of these buttons are smaller than a pinhead, making tapping them, and not the ad, an Olympic sport. There's also the issue of tracking. As I've covered many times on this channel, especially in the Port series, large corporations and ad networks will track your every move, from which apps you use, to which websites you visit, your social media activity, the emails and messages you send, everything, in a bid to try and serve you what they call more relevant or personalized advertising. This is, of course, a huge violation of privacy, which gets even worse if you have some publicly available data on social networks such as Facebook. So what I'm saying is that not all ads are bad, but many of them are. If an ad violates your privacy, tracks you wherever you go, is fake or misleading, then it should be your right to block it at the very least. That's where Pi-hole comes in. DNS, short for domain name system, is the way that computers translate domain names such as google.com or doubleclick.net into IP addresses. When you type an address in your browser, or more importantly, when an app tries to load an ad from the web, the domain is translated into an IP address by a DNS server, which then allows the content to be retrieved. Pi-hole is what is known as a DNS sinkhole, also known as a black hole DNS. Besides sounding cool, a DNS sinkhole is a DNS server that's been configured to reply to requests for certain domain names with a non-routable IP address. Basically, an IP address that your computer or device has no way to reach over the internet. This basically means that if you have a list of domain names used by ad agencies and corporations, you can add this list to your DNS sinkhole, and all requests for those ads will fail. Pi-hole is a network-wide ad blocker. The way it works is that you install Pi-hole on some computer or device in your network. You then configure your devices, or better yet, your router or modem, to use Pi-hole as a DNS server. Pi-hole then filters out the ads and other unwanted content and trackers, and this works on any device on your network, be it a computer, smartphone, tablet, smart TV, or anything else that can display ads. Pi-hole is the combination of several open source technologies that let you quickly set up a DNS sinkhole in your own network. Originally compatible with Raspberry Pi devices, which is where the Pi-hole name comes from, it has since added support for several Linux distributions, or Docker if you're using macOS or Windows. Pi-hole doesn't just block ads either. It can block known malicious websites and content, has a built-in DHCP server, a network query log, and a statistics analyzer, as well as different privacy modes and much more, all controlled through an easy-to-use web interface. Now you might be saying, can't I just use AdBlock? Well, on your computer, sure. But an ad blocker won't help you in your mobile games, apps, smart TVs, and other devices. Plus, you have to configure ad blocking on each device separately. With Pi-hole, you just set it and forget it. You can install Pi-hole on any computer in your network, but you will need to keep that computer on 24/7. Since the Pi-hole acts as your DNS server, if it's down, you'll pretty much have no internet. That's why a popular choice for Pi-hole is to run it on a Raspberry Pi. These cheap devices consume little power, make no noise, and can be chucked away in a cabinet and pretty much forgotten about. Personally, I'll be installing Pi-hole on this, my Raspberry Pi 400. Now, this is a bit overkill for this, so I eventually plan on getting a Raspberry Pi Zero and hiding it away somewhere. But for now, this is what I have, and the Raspberry Pi Zero seems to be out of stock worldwide. Chip shortage for you. So, let's get started. So here I am on my Raspberry Pi desktop. Now the first thing you'll want to do is give the Raspberry Pi a static IP address. Now what the hell does that mean? Well, if I go to my router settings here, you'll see I have this setting, DHCP server enabled. Now DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Basically, when one of your computers connects to the network in your house, this server will give it an IP address. Now, as you can see from my settings here, it's gonna start giving them out from 192.168.1.10 all the way to 192.168.1.254, as you can see here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my Raspberry Pi to have an address that is before 192.168.1.10. I'm gonna set it to blah 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 .9. Now the reason for this is that one, the Raspberry Pi must always have the same IP address so the other computers can find it, and two, if I give it an IP from this range, well, the DHCP server won't necessarily know about it and might give out the same IP to another computer. So I'll end up with two computers on my network with the same IP, which is just bad news. So with the number ascertained, I'm going to go here to the network icon on the Raspberry Pi OS and right click, and I'll click wireless and wired network settings. Now from this drop down here, I'll choose ETH0. And as you can see, in my case, everything is empty here. So I'm just gonna go here to IPv4 address, and I'll type in the address manually. I'm actually also gonna specify my router address here, but I'm gonna leave everything else empty. You'll notice that there is this option here in the Raspberry Pi, automatically configure empty options. Okay, which is fantastic. So I'll click apply, and I'll click close. Okay, so now we should have that IP. Okay, if you hover over the icon, okay, it will tell you the IP address of the network, and as you can see, that setting doesn't seem to have applied yet. Okay, we can actually check via the terminal, which is this icon here, and type IP space ADDR, And this gives you your IP address, but as you can see, it's still using that IP address that I had before I made my settings. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to restart the Raspberry Pi in the hope that it will actually get the new IP address. Okay, so I've restarted my Raspberry Pi. Now you'll notice up here that the network icon keeps blinking. It says link is up configuring, but it doesn't seem to have accepted the IP address. Except it has. Okay, this is probably some sort of bug here, because if I open up a browser and I visit a website, you'll see that the website comes up just fine. Okay, and if I go to the terminal and I type IP space ADDR, you'll notice that I do have that IP address 192.168.1.9. Okay, so the setting did work. Don't worry about this icon here, it's just probably a little bit confused. So now that our machine has a static IP address, we can go ahead and configure Pi-hole. Now luckily there is a one-line configuration script here that we can use. So I'll go to the Pi-hole website, which is pi-hole.net, and I'll click install. Now, if you scroll down a little bit in this page, you'll get here, one-step automated install. Brilliant. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to copy this guy. And now I'm going to go to the terminal again. And I'm just going to paste the command in here and press enter. Now, as you can see, the script has started running and it's doing its thing. So what's happening at this point is that anything that is required by Pi-hole is automatically being installed, as you can see here. Now, just in case this script does fail, okay, make sure that you have the time set correctly. Okay, since sometimes on a Raspberry Pi the time isn't properly set, and you'll have errors with SSL. Okay, so here we are with the automated installer. This installer will transform your device into a network-wide ad blocker. Great. The Pi-hole is for, okay, blah, blah, blah. So, the Pi-hole is a server, so it needs a static IP address. Choose to indicate you have understood this message. So we've already done that, so we'll click yes. So choose an interface. Now, as you can see, I can either choose my wireless network or my wired. I'm going to keep the default selection, which is my wired. Do you want to use your current network settings as a static address? Yes, I do. Okay, so here it's telling us that a router, if not properly configured, could still try to assign this IP to a device. But most modern routers don't do that. In fact, it's even saying it here. So I'll just say, okay. So select an upstream DNS provider. Now, all of the devices on your network will use this Raspberry Pi or whatever you're using as their DNS server. But the Raspberry Pi itself does need a proper DNS server since it needs to then forward your queries. Now, there are a number of choices here that you can use. I'm going to go with OpenDNS. Now, in order to block ads, we need a list of domains to block. And as you can see in this list, there's only one right now, Stephen Black's Unified Hosts list. So I guess I'll keep that selected and click OK. Do you wish to install the web admin interface? Yes, I do. So I'll leave that as default. Do you wish to install the web server and required modules? Yes, I'll say OK. Do you want to log queries? Why not? Select a privacy mode for FTL. Now, I have no idea what this means, so I'm going to control-click on this link to see what that means. Okay, so apparently this refers to the privacy level I want for the statistics that Pi-hole shows me. I'm just going to keep the default in this here, show everything. And now Pi-hole is being installed and configured.
A few moments later.
Okie dokie. So the installation is complete. And you'll see here that it says configure your devices to use the Pi-hole as their DNS server using the following IP address. And we can visit the web interface. It gives us the address here. And it also gives us a login password. So you'll want to make sure you write that down somewhere. You can obviously then change it later. Okay. And that's it. The installation is complete. Okay, so here I am on my main computer and I've logged into my router admin page again. I'll go to connectivity in my case. And again, we get to this DHCP server page. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to change the DNS server that is given out to the computers on my network to 192.168.1.9. So all the computers on my network will be told, yo, that's where you have to go for DNS, and that's the address of the Pi-hole. I'll set the other servers to 0, so that guy becomes the only choice. Now I'll click apply. And this might cause your router to restart. Okay? Okay, so those changes seem to have been applied. Okay, so now let's try it out by visiting some websites. And I'll be showing you on screen some before and after footage so you can see the type of stuff that gets blocked. So first I'm going to go to my local news website, which is normally full of ads. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you this. See, I'm using a browser that can block trackers by default, but I currently have it set to no blocking, so my browser isn't doing anything. And pretty instantly you can see that no ads load at all. I still have all the page content, but nothing. No ads have been displayed on the page. So this seems to be working absolutely fine. Let's also go to something like CNN.com. Okay, we still get the cookie warning. Again, I'll want to make you'll see it is set to no blocking, and as you can see, no ads have loaded up. Okay, and yeah, so there used to be some Omega ads here on this page, but now absolutely nothing. Now, of course, it's not going to block absolutely everything. So if I go to Facebook, for example, and I'm again setting to no blocking here, you will see that as I scroll down, I still get the sponsored posts like this one here. So obviously it won't block absolutely everything, since on Facebook this just looks like a normal post here. However, if I go to my tracking protection, you can see that no trackers were blocked by my browser, meaning no trackers were received. Those are being filtered by the Pi-hole. I'm going to switch to Reddit here. And again, you'll see that the sponsored posts still come up. So it's not going to block absolutely everything, guys. If it's part of a social network, for example, that's still going to be there. However, it will be blocking at least some of the trackers that would be associated with these ads. So that's always a good thing. Now, I'm also going to open a private browsing window, which I'm going to put here. And I'm going to visit YouTube. And I'm going to look up this channel here. And load a video. Now you will see that these video ads still come up, okay? The difference is that there are no trackers. Remember, guys, my aim here isn't necessarily to disable ads, but rather to improve my privacy. Now, that being said, there are ways to disable these video ads on YouTube as well, but that's not currently something I'm interested in doing. Now, whilst we're at it, I'm also going to open a mobile game. So this game here, it's actually asking me to pay to remove ads. But when I click the with friend button, an ad shows up. And there you go. As you can see, I pressed the button and this time I got absolutely no ad and I can just go ahead and play my game. Now, the first time you do this, you might still occasionally get a few ads, since the address that the game or the website that you're trying to visit may have been cached on the device, so it still will reach the ad server. But as you can see, in this case, nada. I tap and no ad comes up whatsoever. So I'm trying another game here, and this game is meant to display an ad when you die. So I'll go ahead and die quickly. Okay, and as you can see, again, I'm being asked to disable ads, which is lovely. But I'll tap play again and there you go. No ads this time. Normally when I tap play again, I'll get an ad, but this time, absolutely nothing. I'm just gonna give it a second shot, just to make sure that I'm not screwing something up here. Okay, play again. No. This is ridiculous. As you can see, no ads whatsoever. So this has suddenly made free-to-play games a little bit less annoying to play. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is an administrative interface that we can use to manage our Pi-hole. So I'm gonna go to pi.hole/admin, and there you can see that the administrative interface of the Pi-hole comes up. Now, the way this is working is that the pi.hole address is being intercepted by our DNS on the Raspberry Pi, and it is redirecting to the IP of it. So actually, this is a good way to see whether it's working. You know, if this address brings you up to this interface here, well, then you're good. Now, as you can see, we get some statistics here. We have 147 queries blocked, and of those queries, 29.1% were blocked. Now, I've only been using this for a few minutes, guys, but basically you can see that 30% of the internet traffic I've generated in 5 minutes is ad-related. Okie dokie, so I'll go ahead and click login. And I'm going to type in the password that was given to me during the install. There we go, login. And here we get all of the information. Now again, you don't really need to see this, but it's interesting from something like a network admin or someone who's just interested in technology to see what's going on. Now you can see down here that we have top blocked domains. And these are basically all of the domains that are being blocked. Google Ads, Google Ad Colony, AppLovin, some sort of apps flyer, blah, blah, blah. There is a list with the default list we downloaded for 100,794 domains that are blocked, all related to ads. You'll also notice here, if we go to top clients, that the only client I have here, basically, besides localhost, is my router. So all of the network devices on my network are querying my router. It is then forwarding to me, and there is where the blocking is coming from. We can actually go to a query log here, as you can see, and we can see everything being blocked. Okay, you will also notice some interesting stuff that I don't remember doing, so this must be here. Now, if you see some traffic in this query log that you want to start blocking, all you need to do is click this blacklist button, And similarly, if you see some traffic that you don't want to block, all you need to do is click whitelist. So over time, this will just keep getting better and better. Okay? So again, my email is okay. As you can see, we have quite a lot of Apple stuff here, which is a bit ridiculous since I'm the only person in the house right now and I've removed almost all of my Apple devices. Let's see. Okay, so as you can see, Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you have your list of whitelist here. So anything you add to this page will not be blocked. And the blacklist here, so anything you add here will be blocked. We also have group management. So this can get quite sophisticated. So we can add devices on our network to a group and configure different blocking rules depending on which group the client is in. Now this might be useful if you are in a company, for example, or a corporate environment. In my case, since I'm just, at home, I'm not gonna bother for now. Now if we go here to add lists, you can see that we have the default add list, which is enabled, okay? Now you can add other lists here, but with some research online, I found that honestly, the default list is all you need. And for those of you wondering, no, it's not that easy to block YouTube ads since they come from the same domain as YouTube itself, just like ads you see on Facebook, Reddit, or other social networks. So those kinds of ads can't be blocked. Or rather, they can be blocked, but it's a bit of a hit or miss thing. The trackers behind them though, those can be blocked. We can also disable the ad blocking for some predefined intervals, indefinitely or for some custom time. We also have tools here, which shows us a bunch of other stuff. And obviously you can configure the settings here related to your upstream DNS servers, which we set during the installation. We can also set the Pi-hole to be our DHCP server and other stuff like that. And that's basically it. Again, I encourage you, once you've done this, to go ahead and explore the interface to see what you have. But so far, with very, very little configuration, we have already successfully managed to block ads on most websites and on mobile apps. As I hope you've seen, setting up Pi-hole in your home or office network is very easy. And from my experience browsing websites, playing games, viewing some video sharing services, it actually does work. So I really encourage you to give it a try and let me know how it goes down in the comments below. Oh, and whilst you're so close, please consider giving this video a like and this channel a subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of my subscribers. You're making more of a difference than you think. And if you really want to make a difference, like these folks on screen now, please consider subscribing to me on Patreon. There are 4 pledge levels available, and you'll get perks like early access to videos, your name in the credits, a dedicated Telegram chat for patrons, the ability to suggest videos, and more. Also, if you want to watch these videos outside of the control of Google on YouTube, you can also do so on Odyssey, an open platform with my videos and tens of thousands of others. Well, that's it for now. As always, thanks for watching.